The Montierra family has long been a vital part of the neighborhood. Retired military officer Roberto Montierra and his spouse, Isabella, were well-liked and respected. Alessia and Sofia, their two daughters, were the joy of their existence. At the age of 26, Alessia, the elder, married Emilio Vargas, a prosperous architect who was 15 years her senior. Alessia's elegance and poise were complemented by Emilio's charm and charisma, making their marriage viewed as a partnership of strength and stability. The younger sister, Sofia, was a bright 19-year-old with big dreams. She was thrilled about the endless opportunities that awaited her as a new college student. Her youthful joy, though, frequently concealed a deep-seated insecurity and a desire for approval, particularly from her family and Emilio, her sister's husband. She was impressed by Emilio's achievements and his seemingly flawless life, which contrasted sharply with her own uncertainties. Friends, sorry to interrupt, but please help me reach 1,100 subscribers by the end of the summer. I will be very pleased. Let's keep going. Sofia's admiration for Emilio developed into a deep infatuation as the months went by. His humor, his generosity, and the fact that he seemed to understand her in a way that others did not drew her in. On his side, Emilio saw Sofia's attention and, even though he knew it was inappropriate, found himself feeling the same way. Their illicit affair was further fueled by the secrecy surrounding their connection. Their little get-together quickly developed into whispered confessions and snatched moments of passion. Despite being kept secret from the public, their affair was a ticking time bomb. The Montierra family's delicate balance was about to topple over. Alessia wasn't an idiot. She started to notice the small behavioral shifts in her sister and her husband, who seemed preoccupied. She was irritated by the quiet talks, the lingering looks, and the unexplained absences. But she opted to say nothing, holding out hope that her misgivings weren't validated. Her silence served as a thin covering for her mounting hurt and desperation. That chilly, rainy evening proved to be the turning point. Ever the watchful father, Roberto Montierra, discovered the reality. He was broken to see his youngest daughter entwined with his son-in-law. The betrayal was deeply hurtful and sparked a long simmering rage. Emotions were running high and accusations were flying during the explosive confrontation. Unable to control his rage, Roberto did the unthinkable in a fit of blind rage. The following morning, Emilio Vargas's lifeless body was discovered by a neighbor who had stopped by to borrow a tool. The town was rocked by the news, which disbelieved the locals and spread like wildfire. The scandal that had once put the Montierra family in the public eye now threatened to topple them all. The Emilio death inquiry was completed in a timely and efficient manner. The case was given to veteran investigator Detective Lucia Reyes, who was renowned for her keen intuition and unwavering resolve. She knew right away that this was no straightforward murder. She unearthed layers of deceit and betrayal that painted a bleak picture of a family in disarray. The extent of Roberto's rage and Sofia's level of involvement with Emilio were both made clear by Lucia's investigation. Every interview and bit of evidence contributed to the intricate puzzle. Even though Alessia was heartbroken by her husband's adultery, she insisted that her father was innocent. She insisted that even in his rage, Roberto was incapable of killing Emilio. The lies got more entangled as the investigation went on. Alibis were examined, motives questioned. When Detective Reyes dug deeper into the darkest secrets of the Montierra family, the once clear distinction between right and wrong became more hazy. As the town watched, desperate for explanations and justice, the pressure increased. Sofia felt a great deal of guilt during all of this chaos. She struggled with the fallout from her actions, balancing her allegiance to her family with her love for Emilio. Everyone could now see the scars left by her affair, and the community's reaction was harsh. As the puzzle pieces started to fit together, Detective Reyes was faced with the difficult task of finding the truth. The stakes were higher than ever, and the investigation was far from over. The Montierra family would either get closure upon discovering who killed them, or grow more estranged from one another. The town's broken peace served as a warning about the devastation that lies and secrets can cause. The Montierra family, once a source of power, was on the verge of collapse. Amidst everything, the secret lay in wait to be revealed, holding the potential to alter their lives irrevocably. Though Detective Lucia Reyes had handled her fair share of challenging cases, the tragedy that befell the Montierra family was turning out to be one of the trickiest cases she had ever worked on. The investigation was complicated by the family's secrets, which none of the whispers in the small town could really shed light on. The patriarch, Roberto Montierra, was a man of strict morals. He had been in the military, so he had a strong sense of discipline and honor that made betrayal difficult. His strong moral code had crumbled at the sight of his daughter Sofia with Emilio, and his rage was a powerful mixture of wounded pride and protective fatherhood. Upon questioning him, Detective Reyes observed a man who was profoundly conflicted. He had acted out of blinding rage, but he also had a strong love for his family. Roberto's wife, Isabella Montierra, was a reserved, perceptive lady. She had always been the family's mediator, the cool-headed person who could diffuse conflict and calm people down. She discussed her husband's temper issues and the destruction Emilio's betrayal had caused to their lives during the interview. Isabella stood by Roberto in spite of her heartbreak because she thought he couldn't have committed murder. But there was a hint of shadows in her eyes, as if she knew more than she was revealing. The bereaved widow, Alessia, was a contradiction in herself. Her calm exterior belied a flurry of feelings. Although she had loved Emilio with all of her heart, she felt deceived and humiliated when she learned of his affair with her sister. As Alicia described the months of mistrust and uncertainty, her anguish was palpable in every word and movement. Detective Reyes sensed that Alicia was holding back, either to protect her sister or out of fear of further severing their family bond, despite her unwavering loyalty to her father. The focus of the inquiry was the youngest daughter, Sofia Montierra. Her youthful insecurities and need for approval had led to a reckless and passionate relationship between her and Emilio. The guilt Sofia felt as she sat across from Detective Reyes was evident. Although she acknowledged having an affair, she insisted that she never intended for it to get this far. Although she had truly loved Emilio, her feelings were now clouded by regret and the terrible events that transpired. Detective Reyes was convinced that Sofia was holding a vital piece of information that could potentially alter the course of events. And then there was Emilio Vargas, the man whose deeds had initiated this sad series of events. Emilio had been a successful and captivating man in life, but in death, his shortcomings were exposed. His previous transgression was not the affair with Sofia. Detective Reyes discovered a pattern of deceit and manipulation as she dug into his past. Emilio had a talent for making people feel unique and integrating himself into their lives, then tearing it apart when it fit him. His most valuable quality and deadly weakness had been his charm. Now that the main characters were known, Detective Reyes focused on the murderous evening. The evidence was a complex network of inconsistencies. Sofia's DNA was discovered at the scene, along with Roberto's fingerprints. Alicia provided an alibi that was supported by multiple townspeople, but there were inconsistencies in her account that begged suspicion. The family pillar, Isabella, appeared to know more about what had happened that evening than she was willing to divulge. A novel theory started to take shape as Detective Reyes put the timeline together. What if Emilio's murder was a planned act of retaliation rather than a crime of passion? What if the Montierra family, already severely damaged by treachery, had planned to get rid of the man who had caused them so much suffering? Detective Reyes's discovery of a string of texts sent by Sofia to Emilio the night before he passed away marked a turning point. They depicted a relationship that was about to end, with Sofia begging for one more chance and Emilio trying to end it. The correspondence became more frantic, with Sofia threatening to make their affair public if Emilio failed to meet her. This fresh information brought Sofia back into focus. She was a prime suspect because of her emotional turmoil and desperation. But something wasn't quite right. Although Sofia was impulsive, Detective Reyes was aware that she lacked the cold calculation necessary to commit murder and orchestrate such a detailed cover-up. The DNA, the fingerprints, and the skillfully crafted alibis all suggested a more intricate scheme. Detective Reyes was faced with a decision when the investigation reached a turning point. She could have reached the truth, but it was hidden beneath layers of hurt and deceit. In order to solve the puzzle and provide the Montierra family with justice, she required one last piece of evidence. The stakes were higher than ever, and the pressure was building. Knowing that Detective Reyes's conclusions would irreversibly alter the lives of those concerned, the town watched with bated breath as she readied herself to reveal the truth. A final revelation that would either mend their wounds or widen the rift even further threatened to topple the broken harmony of their once peaceful existence. With the last few pieces of the puzzle falling into place, Detective Lucia Reyes stood at the edge of the truth. The intricate web of secrets surrounding the Montierra family had connections between each thread that she was initially unaware of. Her discovery weighed heavily on her as she assembled the family and important witnesses for one last confrontation. The atmosphere in the room was tense, full of suspense. Intense silence. Roberto, Isabella, Alicia, and Sofia looked back and forth between each other and the detective. Lucia started by reliving the events, pointing out contradictions and the recently discovered evidence. The spark had come from Sofia and Emilio's text messages, but there was more. A vital component that connected everything. Important details were recalled by the neighbor who found Emilio's body. A car speeding out of the Montierra property late that night, with its lights off to avoid being seen. The car was tracked down by Detective Reyes to an abandoned warehouse outside of the city. She discovered a burner phone with a string of mysterious messages on it, along with blood traces that matched Emilio's. The records from the burner phone showed a discussion between two individuals about a final solution to their issue. Although the messages were coded, their meaning was evident. As Lucia presented this evidence and observed the audience's reactions, her heart raced. Sofia was the first to cry, her guilt overwhelming her. Desperate to get Emilio to stay, she admitted to meeting him that evening. However, their disagreement became physical when he refused. She had hit him, she swore, but he had still been alive when she'd left. She was unaware that the burner phone belonged to someone else. Then came a word from Isabella, the ever-supportive mother. Her eyes were sad, but her voice remained steady. She disclosed that she had been aware of the affair practically from the start and had thought it would end amicably. She had confronted Emilio, pleading with him to stop his affair with Sofia when it became apparent that he had no intention of leaving his wife. Her resolve to defend her family was strengthened by Emilio's mockery and rejection of her cries. However, Roberto made the last, startling admission. His expression was masking his pain as he explained how he'd lost control after learning about the affair. He acknowledged assaulting Emilio, but after realizing what he had done, he had called for assistance, not from the police, but from a person he had complete faith in. Alicia had remained silent the entire time. So Lucia turned to her. Compared to her earlier displays of grief, Alicia's eyes were icy. She obviously knew her father was involved from the beginning, but decided to keep him safe. She had owned the burner phone as a backup plan to protect her father from the consequences. She had planned the cover-up, creating a false alibi for Roberto and herself, based on her in-depth knowledge of Emilio's routine and their house. When it became apparent how extensive the family's deception was, the room erupted into chaos. Detective Reyes was taken aback by Roberto's confession and Alicia's icy manipulation. She had not realized how desperate they were, or how far they would go to keep their broken family intact. Ultimately, Roberto was detained for the killing of Emilio Vargas, but the Montierra family's disintegration was the real tragedy. When her husband was taken away, Isabella's quiet strength broke down, and Sophia's guilt developed into a deep-seated trauma. Once the source of stability, Alicia now had to deal with the fallout from her actions and acknowledge that her attempts to keep her family together had actually caused them to fall apart. Given Roberto's confession and the overwhelming body of evidence, the trial proceeded quickly. He was given a life sentence, the ultimate punishment for his angry outburst, and left a broken man. Charges of obstructing justice and tampering with evidence were brought against Alicia, whose icy calculation turned the community's compassion into contempt. Following the trial, the Montierra family dispersed. In search of comfort from the sound of the waves and the solitude of a new location, Isabella relocated to a small seaside town. Haunted by what had happened, Sophia fled to another nation in an attempt to start over far away from the memories of the past. After completing her sentence, Alicia made the decision to live in seclusion, her once bubbly spirit dulled by her choices. Despite being happy with the outcome, Detective Reyes was still affected by the case's sadness. At a high cost, she had found the truth and delivered justice. The demise of the Montierra family served as a sobering reminder of the perilous nature of secrets and the brittleness of trust. The town also saw change. The controversy had a lasting impact, and rumors about the Montierra catastrophe persisted long after the news had faded. The trust that had bound the once close-knit community together changed forever as people started to become cautious. Ultimately, the tale of the Montierra family served as a warning about love, treachery, and the extent people will go to in order to keep the people they care about safe. It served as a testament to both the tragic outcomes that can result from a single, irreversible act and the complexity of human nature.